Welcome back everyone to Four Lake Forest. Again, a little quick review what have been done in the past two episodes. We started our Black Forest Magical Park. This is a high budget theme park located in Germany. We are orienting ourselves on the architecture of the Black Forest region, but we are building it as an intentional theme park. We've done the main street a little bit and a main centerpiece that you can see over here, which is going to house a wonderful dark ride we are going to do in one of the next episodes. But we are starting today's episode with the station building and a souvenir shop. Just a little heads up what's going to happen this episode. We're going to have this station building, but we're building basically the entire left-hand side of our main entrance area. I will be talking quite a lot about the idea of the main entrance area of the park, which equally is a little bit of the baseline for the park itself. We're going to talk about a specific thing I did for the souvenir shop, because there will be something very cool we're going to build, and which you may have spotted in the thumbnail or you may have not, but it's actually something really cool. It's a tiny detail which has a huge influence on this ride, because it basically gives away the theming of the coaster that's going to happen during the next couple of episodes. But before we get into this, we need to first of all go into today's episode, and I have to talk a lot about sidelines. Now, if you have a theme park or a zoo or like a landscape area just in general, or like let's say a normal park in a way, whenever it is fully intentional, see there are like two different actually not two, but like two main ways of doing it. You either have a fully intentionally man-made park, like the Central Park in New York, for example, which is nothing but man-made and fully intentionally designed the way it is designed, or you have nature that existed the way it is, and you kind of build your park around it by utilizing what's already been there. So that's most often than not the case in most parks, but sometimes you do still have certain areas that, stay the way they are, also by law maybe sometimes, but also because it's nice. So you have this difference, and if you go into the difference in specific, I was told by the Bro Nation a couple of years ago that the difference is called like nature or nature. While nature is, as it says, nature, which occurs how nature has intended it to be, or nature, which kind of should mimic nature, but in a way more tidy and more clean and more, intentional by a human design. No, this park is fully human design. This is going to be nature wherever you look, but we're going to try to, wave in a little bit of nature whenever we can, because the Black Forest offers so much of it that it just makes sense. However, in that context, this main street should mimic a market space from a typical kind of Black Forest little town. That's the main idea for the main street. It's not going to be the typical kind of US main street you have in a lot of high budget parks, or like, Phantasialand is playing with an old kind of Berlin version, but it all kind of goes back to the same, kind of aristocrat buildings, from the same kind of type of architecture that also the main, the main street architecture, the typical kind of Victorian style. That is not what we are going to do. We are going to follow the kind of Black Forest, very German Fachwerk inspired design, which definitely is a different approach. It's not like that. Not any park ever has done this, but I find it a very good idea to follow this idea along, and just having the idea to make this is probably something I want to follow even more and dig deeper into, finding even more architectural influences throughout the entire park. But yeah, you can see this specific place over here, I've been struggling quite a lot with the pathing to get it right, to also, ensure we have a ramp that obviously gives a better accessibility to the ride. We don't always want to have stairs everywhere. We also need to ensure that people with strollers or actually wheelchairs will be able to be brought up here. I mean, strollers potentially not, other than just maybe getting your little kid from over there when they're fully exhausted and you put them back into their strollers, which with a 4 or 5 year old shouldn't happen that often, but it could be, but it's more likely for like wheelchair users that they will be able to be pushed up here without an elevator, to, ensure that they can also enjoy the ride. I was also trying to establish a couple of different ways of making barriers and edges and fences, because I want to have all these things as a topic throughout the entire park. The queue is a bit of a bigger challenge, and spoiler ahead, I have not fully fixed this already in this episode, which is due to the fact that it needs to be embedded into the entire area a little bit more than just somewhat. And therefore, my idea was to this time around, first of all, focus on the souvenir shop. That is not going to be in the exit this time around. It's going to be part of the entrance. It's not going to have the photos in here, the photo kiosk. I'm not even sure if we will have an action photo on the right. At the moment, we don't. And potentially we are going to keep it that way. I'm not maybe we have, maybe we haven't, but like, it is relatively closely located over here. So maybe I will put this kiosk somewhere located next to the exit. Maybe not. I'm still a little bit debating with myself. There is a possibility to put it next to the exit, but I don't want to put a full kind of house next to it. There's a couple of things I plan for this area, which kind of keeps me away from doing that. And the souvenir shop itself is something I want to have more generically for the park itself rather than just for that ride, and which is the main reason why I'm going for, having this kind of focused area here. And as you can see from the footage, and I left a lot of these in just to be able to speak about and give myself a little note to where I want to put that info, I was changing the pathing dramatically often this time around, and the reason for that, I said sidelines a little bit earlier today, the reason for that is that I was constantly checking what guests can see when they enter the park. This is more or less the most important bit of your park. Whenever you come into the park, whatever you see is defining the idea that you have for your park, and you want to be the one in charge. You want to direct the views. You want to ensure that you make people look into certain directions, and I wanted to make everything right on this main street. Again, as this is one of my first super high budget intentionally built parks. It's not like that the other parks weren't high budget, but it's more likely that the other parks I did already had kind of a theme going on that we need to build with, whether it's been Eastern Apali where the island has been built, and you needed to work with the island kind of things, or whether it's been typically Hanseatic Dreamland, where we had to build with the existing harbor in mind, that we would utilize some of the harbor buildings, which kind of defies the idea of having everything in your charge or under your control. But this time around we had, and so I wanted to ensure that everything we have over here is in a space that it has its specific job. And this souvenir shop over here exactly gets the job of making sure people can enjoy a bit of time when they enter the park, and kids want to maybe go on this little whirly rig kind of entrance or also entry attraction, and they don't need to spend their time solely sitting there and waiting for them, but they could also just go for a little stroll in that souvenir shop. But also it's a typically nice located souvenir shop for people exiting our park, because that is an area where also the restrooms are, as you can see here to the right hand side. So typically before you leave, what you would do is also, if you got kids, but also maybe you're getting older and your planter is going to be worse, I don't know, but or bladder, how's it called? Anyways, but that one way you have your pee in, I guess. I think it's bladder, right? Anyways, if it's not there, you need to go there more often. Or if you got a kid, you need to go there more often anyways. But that's a typical kind of behavior before you leave a park. And again, if not everyone does, then other people can go into the souvenir shop, and also kids can tell you that they finally want to have the plushie or the coaster car or whatever puzzle, they've seen when you enter the park. So there's a lot of thought behind this and why it's exactly located in this specific space over here. It's been fantastic building this. It's a lot of fun, and I will talk about that briefly in the real-time part 2, but this is not the final, obviously it's not the final version of the souvenir shop. It's going to evolve over time. I also do hope that Frontier is going to improve the souvenir shop, not by its functionality, that is fantastic already, but by the choice of items we have, so that maybe with the coming DLCs or maybe with the coming free updates, we may get a couple more items to be showcased in here from the different themes we have as well, because I feel like there's a lot more chance to give us more items from various themes in the game. I mean, we technically do have 9 different themes in the game, while we only have 4 different themes to choose from in our shops, which is a bit of a lost opportunity at this point, I guess, or missed opportunity. So that's what we did over here. You see a couple of cuts here and there, by the way, just because the whole building process was just insanely long. It took me quite a couple of hours because I was changing so often between viewing points and needed to rearrange the buildings to ensure that from certain angles I still see that main centerpiece and it still remains the biggest kind of focal point of our area. But I also wanted to ensure that this, market space area is still believable and not too spacious and far away. So there are a couple of things you need to kind of consider, and I'm also not 100% done with it in my mind. So there are a couple of things I want to do. I want to bring in even more little Easter eggs. I recently watched a lot of different videos, whether it's been from Fog or also Kinnerly and all the others posting in Bronation, giving me ideas all the times. There are some ideas I have. Another great idea I have is to tell you guys about something that you can benefit from quite a bit, and that is, almost as always I want to say, but we have Instant Gaming as the sponsor of our channel. And Instant Gaming is a platform where you can, well, if you don't know yet, I don't know if you're living under a rock, but you can get games and keys and in-game currency for a very good value. They have a very nice customer support if anything is going wrong, and the best thing, you help me directly while you help yourself. Whatever you buy from this platform will be, part of it will be going to me as like a little fee, and you kind of help me reach my target number of sales, which is again helping me directly. So yeah, if you want to check out, make sure to click the link in the description or to the top right. But now we get to my favorite part of today's episode, and it's equally the smallest part of today's episode. We are building a custom vintage helmet, and oh boy have I misjudged that. Oh boy have I misjudged that. I thought, going into that build, I thought, I'm just gonna check a couple small pieces, then you have scaling available, what should go wrong? We have a lot more small pieces available, no big deal. Seeing other people doing so crazy tiny stuff, there's no problem whatsoever gonna happen with this and blah blah blah. And I ended up having spent over 1.5 hours, almost halfway through the recent interview of Emma Watson that was aired on a podcast these days, which has been a great inspirational interview I've been listening to while I was building. But I was shocked for how long it took me to build. And I already cut out the entire time I was browsing the menu to find these suitable pieces over here. That took me another half hour at least to get these pieces. And because this is not something on a table or in a wall, you can't use the technique of sinking in pieces too much because, well, actually they will be sticking out to the bottom, and that is not what it should be. I was struggling a lot to find the correct pieces that mimic what I was going for. So you can see I'm using the statue over here as like a little idea, and there you can see I'm relatively happy, but at some point I figured, okay, that's still not the best way of doing it. I had a couple of nice things here I wanted to put in to just at least buy myself a bit more space. So I used these weird kind of sacks or bags or whatever they are. They have like a kind of nice texture as like an inner wool or inner kind of leather. I don't know what exactly that should mimic, but like typically you have these things if you put them onto your head. They do have like a bit of a nice fabric inside there, but with these old helmets, that was almost like a half helmet itself, like a lot of kind of clothing in there. So I was like, okay, you can get away with this one if you just do it that way. This one over here was also not my best idea ever. I didn't know that the orb is going to be glowing the whole time, so I needed to just change that afterwards, making sure that the orb that I sunk into the helmet remains only black the whole time and deactivated for glowing. That helped tremendously because I was kind of weirdly checking the souvenir shop later. You'll see I'm gonna place these things into the souvenir shop now, and you will see this by placing down. This area becomes brighter and brighter in the minute because I was placing all these things. You can now see click click click, and there's like ever so slightly coming light in, and here I'm going to just turn off the light by clicking these things black, and then just kind of double checking, making a secondary color option with kind of these kind of typical brown, beige-ish vintage helmets. I think they're looking fantastic. I really do think they turn out the best they could. I'm mega happy with the result, honestly. It's been super fun building these things. It's been super fun making sure that these are partially the, as you can see, theming of our whirly rig here. So the idea is that kids are sitting in like a helmet, or like they're sitting in the sidecar maybe of the ride, which is then moving while we're riding. The whole kind of idea around the bike shop over here is being established right now. So hopefully this is kind of the idea that the park can carry, also that we have a lot of these kind of themed areas for our themed rides. I did not notice that I was using one of the animated pieces here. So when I was going into the finishing touches, you can see that I'm trying to put another wheel in as like in a... This is definitely kind of the idea that we have a wheel that usually would be on the side of the sidecar, you know, and I just want to stick that in the center here. I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing with it. It's okay, I guess, but yeah. So something I'm really proud of though is the reason, or like the area how it turned out over here, and the reason why I'm happy is because I intentionally wanted to make it feel a lot more nicely integrated into this region, rather than having the typical kind of flat ride integration that is most likely very big. But I decided to go for, I think it is the smallest flat ride we have in Planet Coaster 2. And so I wanted to utilize that in a very clever way of fitting that all into this corner over here, as if this almost is installed temporarily, you know, on this plaza. Just making sure that this is, and I use these kind of fences like with a rope again, that this is something that you could easily rearrange, and same goes here for the entrance and exit ways, even though I have to admit that these kind of things, again, still I want to be able to have something without these, or at least change the look of them in maybe just having like a little, I don't know, rope or so. Which usually is what you only have there, you know. There's like a guy putting a rope on and off of two kind of little pillars, iron pillars or something. That is it, you know. There's really not that much. So when I was doing this, I also thought like, you know, there's this other side here on the entrance area, and I want to put something else in. And this is a tiny little food court area. And yes, while I do know that this is a little bit early into the park and we do already have quite a lot of food options around, it may seem a little bit stupid. But as I want to go for this idea of a market space area, technically there would be a lot of food and drinks, and I wanted to ensure that we have it. And again, you can imagine that these things are also very nice for those people just about to leave the park, or, and this is another thing, I mean, most likely that's an argument I'm always using, but it is also going to be an area that can be rented for kind of, you know, different types of organizations or festivals or parties or whatnot. More likely in a business context, you know, that maybe a company books this area here for like an announcement or so. And then this entrance area of a park in the winter times or off season, they are typically rented away. Like Phantasialand does it all the time. You can rent the Phantasialand for your job if you want to. You can rent these hotel areas even while the park is operating. I've been to 2 or 3 events already where you go into the park daytime, and then in the afternoon they start kind of blocking. For example, we had that in the Japanese hotel, the Chinese hotel, whatever, the Asian hotel. And like I think at like, was at 5 p.m. or so, they started kind of closing off the hotel area for you know, normal guests, so that only our company back in the day with our client and so on had the ability to be there. So that was kind of fun. While being in an operational theme park, you could still use that area for a pitch in our case back in the day. So that was really, really fun. And my thought process was like, this is typically something Germans would do. So here we go. I mean, you can also let me know in the other, if in the other theme parks, you know, things like that are also very common. If so, that would be interesting to understand. But yeah. Now you can see I'm putting a couple of things here and there, a couple of dormers, and making sure that we have also a couple other things. Putting another tree in. Most of the trees will be not placeholders, but I may rearrange them at some point. I also do have King Coaster over here. I wanted to put a helmet on just because I thought that's a fun idea, making it part of the entire design. So yeah. Last but not least, what we also needed to do over here is to fix some of the buildings. They didn't have side clothings or whatever, and I was like, you know, I'm just gonna make this very simple this time around. Also fixing the roof at some point. I knew this is a good idea. Also, I changed the color a couple of times because looking at it from direct sunlight, I felt like it's cooler to have that roof show a bit of age and show a bit of weathering, so it's not like 100% new anymore. Which I think is still a very good advice even though you build something new, still utilize the decals. I do this still way too seldom. We need to utilize these items way more often, the decals and stuff, to make these buildings look a little bit weathered. And to be honest, if something is built, you don't always build everything the same day. So sometimes, even though a building has just been unveiled and is, ready to go, even then some areas may already be weathered, because these are the areas that have been built very much at the beginning of the process. Sometimes because they have to, because you can't get there anymore with like heavy lifting machinery, or just because plans have changed in the meantime. I don't know, but these are things that could happen. So there are planning reasons for that. But actually, last today, we are preparing already for the upcoming episode. So what we are missing out on is a shelter for a coaster, which, in other words, is a, what's that thing called again? It's a transfer track and a maintenance shed. There you go. Which is going to be in here. I had the idea to make this time around as a lowering mechanism, because the idea to have that under the coaster with this race station, I think, is very obvious, and so I went for this idea. And because I was putting this platform in, as you can see, this is where also the photo kiosk could very nicely go, so you have also like a backstage area for everyone. I just kind of did this already in advance the next episode, but I think it's fine. I think it's totally fine the way it is. But yeah, we are getting towards the end. A couple of fixes here and there. I'll do a couple of things off screen, so you will be seeing a little bit different in the real-time part. But this is already the perfect segue to slowly hand you over to the future Rudi, or the real-time Rudi, I guess is the correct wording, phrasing, whatever. I am so mega happy with this project, guys. I hope you guys are too. And don't forget, if you need anything, make sure to comment down below and just let me know. But now it's time for the real-time part. So we're starting today's real-time part with the wonderful overview of the building we did in last episode, our big main centerpiece over here. I'm still very proud of that one. But today is all about the region we did over here. And I wish I had done a little bit more, but to be honest, it was quite a lot. There was a lot of trial and error going on, and I'm mega happy with how it turned out. There was a lot to sort out, as I was talking about already in the time-lapse, and I fixed a couple of things here before I went into recording a real-time part. You can see there is now a queue in place in front of our little whirly rig thing over here. I gotta admit that I'm not 100% happy with it right now, so I may actually move this little planter here a little bit to the side, so that this one gives a bit more space to breathe, even though I'm very, very proud of of this thing with the placement. There will be another tree somewhere over here to make it a bit more cozy and dense. It's not exactly how I wish it should be. Maybe we are going to place that together, because that huge area over here just needs a tree. I think we're going to go with like an elm tree or something, but that's going to be something we need to put in. Then we also have the couple of buildings over here. So we do have our souvenir shop, as you can tell over here, which is just it's not a placeholder, but it's going to be looking even more different, because I will be doing the queue line, which is at the moment just as a placeholder. It's going to go all the way through here, and it's going to be embedded into the shop. So behind this one, you can see there are a couple of walls over here I can't really pass through, and over here there's also an option to make like a little bit of a view of the coaster, which I'm going to do all a bit like in a teasing way. But you can see a little things I've already done, like this shelf over here looks quite nice with the little styling I did. Then we have our custom little helmet area here. I talked about that quite a lot during the making of the helmets, but yeah, I'm very proud of them. They took me way longer than I thought. An entire evening I was just spending doing these helmets. But I guess, it really, really turned out to be looking believable and great. We have a couple more of those over here, and that's the whole theme of this thing. That's our little kids thing with the helmets on. And, I'm not sure if this is going to stay exactly the way it is right now, but, it's working the way I wanted. It kind of gives me that idea of a wheel in the middle, and then we have all these things with the goggles on and the helmets. I think it does the trick. It does what it should do. So I may actually leave it as is, because I think it's actually fine the way it is. Then we have the main building, which is also going to be like a bit of a, housing for some backstage stuff and so on. You could imagine that in the upper layers, in the upper levels, there's like the park management and all that kind of stuff. Look at the details up there. I think these decals really work like fire. They really do work fine over here. And just like, oh my god, look at all the viewing points. Ah, god, it's so heavy. So amazing. We've got some shops over here. And again, I need to fix a couple of things. You can see people still just walk through here. I'm gonna put some barriers in because obviously we need that for the people selling stuff over here. But you see, I needed to do a little trick, and I will put like a little board or something in front so that it looks like as if the people are standing on these things, because I needed to raise them slightly, as you can see over here, in order to make sure that this works. It's kind of funny though that this person stands on the ground, but okay. So this is that. And then we've got this little seating area over here, very kind of Black Forest vibes. I think this is exactly where I wanted to go for. I still need to change a couple of things here with the housings, a bit of shutters here and there need to be changed slightly in colors, but I'm not fully ready with this area yet, because next episode we are, well, actually, you know what, for next episode I'm going to leave a little bit as a teaser, because I've got something really cool in mind for next week, so maybe I'm going to wait for that to show. There's also like again a little bag, you know, in one of the planters. And then if we go through here, you can see this is where the entrance will be. We're obviously going to make the entrance look a lot nicer than that one right now. And then if you go to the back, there are some restrooms here, hidden down below the station. I think they have a very nice typical placement. This whole queue section is still very nice, but I need to theme that a little bit more, which is a part of next episode. And then if we go around, we have this corner, which I'm still very proud of, because several reasons actually. So the first one being like having this ramp over here is very important indeed, so that, you know, people with like wheelchairs or like a different kind of access, they will be able to take this route in order to enjoy the coaster nevertheless. And then we do have the coaster, which the station is temporarily, it's not done, but it's temporarily done for the moment, because this is going to be the switch track area, or the transfer track area. Below here we will have the shelter, the maintenance shelter, and this is where the coaster sits. But, you know, at this point I want to show you a little bit of a different thing. Oops, I wanted to go down here. Look at the view we get from over here. Yeah, that's more like it, you know, we are getting there. Look at the different views we get from the main area. This looks really like a Black Forest marketplace more and more, and this is exactly the vibe I wanted to go for. And once we branch out into this region, still no idea what exactly we put there, but we're gonna make this entrance area very crowded. There has to be something else. And this is like a seating, you know, you can sit down here and enjoy this view, which was fully intentional. You get some shade, you know, you can enjoy yourself, wait for someone if you want to, but you can just enjoy that view, you know, you can just have a look at this wonderful centerpiece. And yeah, also, can we talk about the graphics just for a moment? Frontier certainly did change something. Look at the colors also of the trees. That is not as it used to be. People were, rightfully so, complaining about some of the colors of the trees, but they have adjusted that it's not anymore. Look at this. This is, am I stupid? Like, please answer in the comments down below, but something has changed. I noticed that in the last episode, most likely, but something dramatically has changed. It's still the temperate map. Like, there's no different map or whatsoever I'm on. It's still the temperate map, and yeah, I don't know. Something has changed. Anyways, let's move out of this camera and go into the overview camera. So if we turn around, so this is the area how it looks. Let me quickly change the time of day to show you that we can actually have this in nice lighting. Look at that. This, like, again, I also want to be able to not jump like 1300, you know, it's 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. I need 1:30, because 1:30 p.m. would be the perfect lighting for this area. I'm gonna leave it, I guess, as 1:30. I can something like that. But like, I mean, just look at that. This roof again has to be, you know, closed. I mean, it's not too shabby because you don't really see that from anywhere as like from a guest perspective. But yeah, so there is that coaster. Come on, oh, it's getting so much better. You've got this exact view that I wanted to have, and so many good things that evolved around this entire idea. So yeah, this is that, and now you can already tell there's a bit of theming we need to do with the queue area. So you can guess that this is part of the next episode, but there is more to that, more to the next episode than only this. It's going to be very fun, I hope. I've got a very nice idea to do that. I'm very curious to see if that works out the way I envision it to be working out, but we'll see about that. So yeah, it's a very interesting area to work with. I've built the whole coaster layout without too much worrying about what else we could put into this region. But apparently we need to do something because that is not going to be solely the coaster area. We need to evolve our park. So that's going to happen in the next episode. We will have more backstage stuff like that because it's just like realistic, you know. Realistically, you can't just have all these houses without any like backstage stuff. We also have some connections over here, which is the main part of the park. You know, a lot of the facilities and management and stuff would go here, so that's just natural that you have it. And we may actually be able to put like a bit of a nice backstage area for, you know, staff members and so on in here. We also don't have any staff rooms, which may very well go in here too. Same goes for the other side, but over here it's a lot more simple because that is going to be the delivery area anyway. So yeah, it's gonna be very interesting episode, the next one, in terms of moving forward in our park. I again have a couple of ideas. I'm not entirely sure what exactly we do. I can only assure you that this queue line is very, very much placeholder. That thing is maybe gonna stay here, maybe not. Again, I have not 100% of an idea right now. But yeah, I'll get there, and this is gonna be fun, I guess, a lot of fun. Actually, I can't wait to show you what I have in mind, and I have tested a couple of things already, but to be honest, normally I'm already a little bit further when I present you the episodes. They're most likely done, and then I've already done, like, let's say 30 to 40% of the next episode. This time around, other than some testing, I haven't really done much more than this because it took so much time, and specifically like these little things took so much time. Look at the look at the wiggle here with the helmets on. I God, love that. And there are still a couple of things I need to fix. You know, this queue has to be fixed. There's like a dead end here. I need to put something in. This would be the perfect area for like a little, I don't know. Oh, actually we could put some ATMs here, I guess. Do we have ATMs? Yeah, I think we have, right? Let's see, facilities, custom facilities. Do we have ATMs? We've got some vending machines. Am I too stupid? ATM? We don't. Ooh, I was so certain we had. That would be the perfect corner for an ATM, which we don't have, apparently. That is not too good. But we can just, like, place. Maybe do I get this one here? Yeah, something like that is okay. I think that makes total sense to have that here, but I'm just going to move that slightly over so both fit in nicely. Yeah, something like that is good. And then I could put a wall or something like that. This is typically how it would be done, you know. Put like a little bit of a roof on top of it, and also I'm missing out on a bit of a roof here. King Coaster is definitely going to stay here with that helmet on. I think that's a perfect idea to have like a little statue going on here. Also love the fact how the market roof works together. But yeah, you can tell our main area is becoming more and more nice. What I said, like, actually, we should go for... these trees are so nice indeed. I'm just going to think, maybe we're going to use an ash tree instead? The large ash tree? I don't know. Like, the problem is, if I'm going to put one here, the thing is, you know, we need to maintain some of the sidelines. So I need to ensure that if I put this... Okay, so this is a placement we could really do. Not too much of an issue here. This area isn't having the best view anyways, but if we go in, yeah, this is exactly what I meant. This is like blocking the entire view, so we come around the corner and still have that. To be honest though, I think from this side we have it. From here it's not. From this side we have it. We could really go for that because it just gives you the idea, and then we have the coaster pathing through. I do think that this is a good position because otherwise, like, the only other position I can see is something like way more into the center, and then we would give this like a free view. But then again, if we go around, I mean, yeah, to be honest, I think even I may even like this more. It could be this one, you know, could be that one. I'm just wondering if we want to have this tree or if we, for example, go for an elm tree, because the elm tree is not as like bushy, for example, you know, if we put the elm tree here, let's say this one, that just not really blocks the view too much. Yeah, I'm definitely going to go for that one. Even though I like the ash tree from the tree itself more, I do prefer to go for that one. So we've done this. We're going to have to steal some of these little barriers we put below, so let's just grab them real quick. and put them in. But that's all we do for the real-time beta, which is way too long anyway, so just gonna plop that down. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. I certainly did enjoy building this. You know, at this point, I'm really like, I want to build in here. It definitely is like urging me to build every single day, and yeah, it's so good. I can't wait for the next episode. And guys, if you want to support me, as always, there's several ways of doing it. The most simple way is just subscribing to the channel and liking the video, making sure my stuff is seen and appreciated. But also, if you want to become a member of the channel, just make sure to become a member of the channel. That helps me. Or you buy a game from Instant Gaming. That is always also helping me directly. If you do purchase from my link here in the description down below, that is also wonderful, and you do yourself a favor and get a game. So that's cool. Anyways, let's hop on into maybe my next video. I hop into bringing the kids into bed and wishing you a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching as always, and goodbye.